Hi, everybody. Anthony here from HNE, and today we have an interesting ensemble of people for our holiday 2021 discussion. So we have a number of topics today. We are going to talk to John first. We have to cover a book that he has published with Al, and he just announced, or Al and John and the crew just announced this past week, the 2022 North American Tour. So we're going to cover a little bit of that. So, John, I'm going to give it to you, and we're going to switch to a screen. First off, focusing on your website, so tell people more about you and how they could find your work.
Okay, well, it's BermudaSchwartz.com or BermudaSchwartz.net or .org or JohnBermudaSchwartz.com or et cetera, et cetera. And it basically gives a rundown of what I've done, my credits, some photos. My most recent project, while we had a year off in 2020, was the book that you see on there, black and white and weird all over, The Lost Photographs of Weird Al Yankovic, 1983 to 86. And I shot a lot of film back in the day, and this was the only era that I shot black and white on Al. And most of these had not ever been seen before. A lot of my stuff's been on the web, and a lot of it's been published, but almost none of these had been seen before. So a book came out actually in November of 2020, and probably the best deal going, and it's right there, is on Amazon. If you can log on today, I don't know how they're doing right now, but the best deal going, they've got it for 30% off. In fact, they've had it for 30% off since January, so I don't know how I made any money at all, but that's the best deal going, and the reviews have been great on it. Al loves the book, the fans have loved the book, and I'm actually working on another book titled To Be Determined, and et cetera, et cetera. But working on another one, but it's going to be a busy year ahead, so that's going to be interesting.
Okay, so let's go on to the next topic. So you guys announced last week the 2022 tour, and I love the title of it. It's the unfortunate return of the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised Vanity tour, which I think the only change in it is the return of.
Well, given that we had 2021 off, we were supposed to be out on the road last January, so I would actually sort of call this the fortunate tour, but it's going to be a long one. It's literally 27 weeks long, and for those that are Al fans, you know the magic of a 27 number, and it's strictly a coincidence. They didn't plan that, but we're out for 27 weeks straight, no breaks, no nothing, and it's going to be a busy one, and that's all throughout the U.S. and Canada, and starts what is it? April 26th, I believe, in Poughkeepsie, and goes right through October 29th. Very cool gig, last gig of that tour, Carnegie Hall in New York City.
Because if I understand the pattern, you start in the New York area. I believe that's what we did in the New York area, right? Literally just said it, yes. So you start in New York, you kind of go through central United States, you go through Ohio, you follow that path into California, then you head north into Canada, then you cross Canada west to east, and then you end up back in the United States, where you kind of circulate around the Midwest, ending at that last location in New York, if I'm correct, based on what I've read.
Yeah, it's some serious zigging and zagging, but tours are just that way. I mean, we're in and out of several states several times. And it's just the nature of, it's just not possible or affordable to plan it all in a row, because you just end up with too many days off that you have to pay for things, and there's no show that day. And it's like, well, how do we pay for that? So it makes more sense to just backtrack 200 miles to a show than backtrack in the same direction 500 miles and do another show, and just going back and forth. And most tours are that way. It just doesn't. It's not possible to have a sensible tour, and that's okay. We're used to that. But it's going to be 6 months of that. And that's a long time. That's going to be our longest time without a break. And we're all old. We're all on Medicare now. So it's not Al. Al's not quite there. But yeah, it's going to be, I think anybody that sees us at Carnegie Hall at the end of a 6-month tour is going to be, if we can still play, they're going to see a heck of a show.
Okay. So let's open up to some questions for John here. Because I know GotBot's a huge fan. I'm a huge fan. I actually wore out my my mandatory fun disc, so because I kept it in my car, and through a few years, it just heat and cold. I destroyed it, and it started warping in my CD player. I don't know where it's at now. I think it broke. Anyway, so questions for John.
I got a question.
Yes.
How far east into Canada is the tour going? Because we're here in Newfoundland, and unfortunately, we don't usually get hit with people because we're too far east, and we're not.
Yeah, not. I don't know if we've ever played Newfoundland before. The farthest east I think we're going on this tour is Ottawa.
Oh,
And
okay.
in the past, we've done Prince Edward Island, and we've done Nova Scotia, and where is St. John? Not St. John's, but New Brunswick. So that's kind of the eastern extent that we've done in the past. But on this tour, it's going to be Ottawa, and to the west, it'll be Vancouver, as usual.
Cool.
So I do have a question. Are you guys releasing another record at some point? Because I noticed you guys are just dropping new things off on the web and not necessarily throwing singles at, or if you are, I'm not seeing them.
No, the last thing that we did was the Hamilton Polka, which was, I think, beginning of 2018, maybe 2019. And as far as an actual album, we're not under contract. We've not been under contract since 2014. You get a #1 album, it's like, great, see you, Sony Records. So the plan is when Al has a new song he wants to do, we can do it, and we can put it out fairly immediately. In the past, it was like, well, you got to have 12 songs, and a song that's going to be a single, then we'll do an album on you. We're not in the business of releasing singles. Well, unfortunately, nobody's really paying for anything anymore, so it just doesn't make sense to keep a contract to have a label that will sell records that nobody's buying. They buy stuff online, and you don't need an actual product. Al can put stuff out there on his own. And so that's the plan. Is he going to blast out 10 or 12 songs at once? Probably not. So in terms of, is there going to be an album? Not per se, no. I think there will be other singles. There's nothing in the works right now. But like I say, the last thing we did after the record deal was the Hamilton Polka, which got a lot of attention and is very cool. Not something that we can pull off live, unfortunately.
Because you've been with Al since the Dr. Demento days. I'm kind of curious, when Al does the records, are you just doing live drumming, or how does like the studio recording go? Are you there?
Oh, of course. And it depends on the song. If we're parodying a song that was sequenced, and so much of that stuff is nowadays, that's what we do. On Mandatory Fun, for example, the last album that we had, all of the parodies were sequenced, and we did all of that work at home. I did all of the drumming and drum sounds on that, and either Steve or Jim, bass and guitar player, did the keyboard parts, sequenced the keyboard parts, and basically all of that music is me, Jim, and Steve. That's all the parodies. Now, the live stuff, we record stuff as a band, and we go into a studio, but all the rest of that stuff is basically sequenced at home. I do it right on the computer, and essentially email the files to Al, who puts them on a drive and goes into the studio and makes sure they all line up. And we talk about what key it's in and the tempo. I mean, we know up front what we're doing, but everything is done. On that album, it was me and one of the other guys, and then Al assembled it all and sang, and you have a #1 record.
Okay. So anybody else have a question? Moose.
Hello.
Hi, Moose.
Hi. I am a huge fan of your guys' music.
Thank you.
When I went to see the Mandatory Fun tour, that was the first time I got to see you guys live, and I ended up surprising myself with how many of your songs that I actually knew the lyrics to, and I ended up losing my voice like really early on. But I'm just genuinely impressed at the range that the band has to be able to perform all of these different genres and perform them well. Like, there are some cases where I prefer the sound of your playing more than the actual original versions. Yeah. So I don't really have a question so much as I'm just very impressed, and I'm a huge fan.
Oh, thank you very much. I think it's one of those deals where some groups just come together and you find all the right guys the first time. Like the Beatles, with not counting Pete Best, but with the Beatles, it was like once it was those 4 guys, it was magic. Each of them was exactly the right guy to make that group a success, the way it was. And with Al, this band's been together since the first album, since beginning of '82, since we cut the first album. And for every tour, every album, every TV, it's the same four guys. I mean, it's Al, me, Steve J on bass, Jim West on guitar. Our touring keyboardist, Ruben Valtier, has been with us for 30 years now. Now, he's the new guy. At 30 years, he's still the new guy. So,
But
we treat him as such, by the way, too.
Go ahead, Dennis.
You guys have been around for so long that it's to a point where, if you guys are going to put something out, like you said, you can put out a single because there's such a rabid fan base anyway that it's going, to be successful. Anyway, when you look back, from 82 to now, we're talking a long time. Do you have an era of music, of creativity that you look back and say, man, the music of that era is like my favorite. It was the most fun to toy with. Like, do you have one that stands out to you? Like, do you go back and say, well, no, the 80s was my favorite, or like late 90s, or maybe the last 5 years has been your favorite? Like the era of music that you guys are creating and manipulating. What era would you say is your favorite?
Yeah, that's really hard to say because I always like you may as well ask what the best album was, what my favorite album was, and it's always the recent one, and it's because we've over the years, if you listen to, everyone says, well, you guys sound just like the original. Well, that's the goal. That's always been the goal. But if you listen to Eat It, let's say from 1984, and how much that doesn't sound quite like Beat It, but it's close enough, I guess, to where we've gotten with the last album, where you literally would not know the difference between our song and the original song. We have gotten that good, and part of it is a production thing, and part of it is the engineer. The other part of it is we've all gotten really good at sound design, they call it. When you're manipulating stuff in a computer, and we've improved with each album. And even between what was Alpocalypse in 2011 and then Mandatory Fun in 2014, even just from the 13th to the 14th album, there was an improvement. I listened back to the early stuff, and it's like, that was a nice effort, but we didn't quite nail it. And I think the serious fans and other musicians can tell. And then over the years, we got better. And so, I want to say, the last decade or two has been my favorite, but I don't dislike the others either.
No.
I like it all. I suppose our best work is what's most current, in terms of best, but I like it all. I'm happy, on this tour, this is a sort of a stripped down tour. There's no costumes, no video, no server to send out horn parts or female vocal parts or percussion parts or whatever. It's just us. It's the five of us on stage. And we're doing some stuff, throughout Al's entire career. So we're going to play some old stuff. We're going to play, the more current stuff, current 2014, I guess. And I like it all, so it's really hard to, in a word, all 4 decades, I guess.
All time, just all of it.
Yeah, just all at once.
Yeah.
Just simultaneous, just like in 3.5 minutes. So you just hear it all, but you don't have to sit in a concert for like 90 minutes.
Right.
So is it more like an unplugged tour coming up then, or? Okay.
Yeah, we did. Now we did a tour, and hence the return of. Well, we did a tour like this in 2018, and that was very well received. Believe me, if it wasn't, we wouldn't be doing it again. And we're not doing this for us. We do it for the fans. And it was very successful because honestly, nobody had ever seen. Since the very early days, when we played strictly as a live band. No trickery, no video, no nothing. It's been a long time. And a lot of our fans weren't even alive then. They couldn't have possibly seen a show of us, just the 4 or 5 of us up there just playing just us for, since about 87, 85, somewhere in there. We started using machines. We started incorporating video. We're working harder to sound more like the records. If we could. We didn't want to sound like just a garage band trying to sound like this other well-produced band.
A garage band from Seattle.
Yeah. So we at some point began introducing tracks, not that we're not playing, but percussion parts, certain background parts, that we couldn't cover, certain sound effects that weren't really possible to insert on the fly live. A lot of that we were depending on the server, which also ran the video. So anytime someone was at a show and you saw video, there's a good chance there was something else coming. There was some audio coming off the video, but the drums were always live, bass guitar always live, accordion always live, Al's lead vocal always live, keyboards always live. And that's what this tour is going to be. Al has a MIDI accordion which can make essentially any sound. In fact, he doesn't even have to pump the accordion. He could just play it as is. I think he pumps it just because he's used to moving his arms in rhythm. But he can play strings, guitar, piano on there, horns. He could, all sorts of impossible stuff. And he fills in because there's only 4 other players on stage. He has to fill in those parts on this unplugged tour because there's just the 4 of us don't make enough noise. So when we rehearsed for a lot of this stuff in the first place back in 2018, he had to basically learn how to play songs that he had written but never actually played. Songs that we played all the parts on, that the guitar player would do 2 or 3 parts on, and now Al is having to be up there having to play a guitar part because we only have 1 guitar player on stage. So Al has to fill in certain other parts or another piano part or some kind of strings or whatever it is. He had to actually work on those things. And we had to, learn and relearn a whole bunch of songs. We pulled a bunch of songs out that we'd never played as a band before.
Okay, so following up on something Moose said, when you hear the songs that you parody, do you hear in your head the songs that you guys recorded instead?
If I hear the original?
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I it's like, oh yeah, we did that, and Al sang this here, and I remember recording that or programming it or whatever. Yeah. Oh, it definitely harkens to what we do. I mean, it's not just, you can't listen to Beat It. I can't listen to Beat It or Bad without hearing Eat It and Fat and stuff like that. Smells like Teen Spirit is automatically Smells Like Nirvana to me. Stuff like that.
Yeah, because a local radio station started playing Radioactive frequently, and I go straight into interactive with the lyrics. It's just an inactive Cheeto dust.
About 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, we were actually going out to a camping trip, and as we were going out, I Think I'm Alone Now came on, and it's been years since I heard that song. That's not the words I started to sing in the car. My wife could probably confirm it. I did not start singing I Think I'm Alone Now. I was singing I Think I'm a Clone Now.
Yes,
that was mine, because I do the exact same thing. When I hear it, that's the song I hear. I mean, I hear you talk, John, and all I can think is, what even all these years later, and you can hear the inflection in your voice, what a passion you still seem to have, a labor of love, so to speak. And even the extra that Al's putting into it. And I think that's probably part of why the fans have stayed loyal and why new fans have come on, because if you guys love it, then they'll love it too. Yeah,
that's exactly it. We're not doing this for the money, really. It's I mean, we're all fine, but it's not Al doesn't have to go out and perform. He does this, he put together a tour because he wants to, because he enjoys going out and performing on stage, and we all do it too. Which is great. I mean, it's been it's turned into, and I don't remember when I realized it, but it has become a career. I mean, it's been a career for some time, and I'm not sure exactly when I realized that this would probably be something I would do until we all stop doing it. I mean, at some point it is going to stop, but I don't know when. Like I said, we're all on Medicare. The band is all Medicare age, and Al's getting close. That's not a secret. We've been doing this 40 years. But I'm going to try and do it as long as Al wants to do it, and as long as I can get up there and play drums, I'm going to continue to be up there, and I think he's going to do it for a long time. I don't know if he's going to do quite the amount of jumping around. Now, these unplugged tours, the first one in 2018, Al literally for almost the whole show just sat on a stool the whole time, and Steve and Jim just sat on stools, and it was just very kind of it was like an unplugged kind of a thing. And everyone stayed on stage for, there was no going off because we didn't have any costume changes. It was just we walked on stage, played for 90 minutes, and then, to thank you, good night. And, normally would come back out and do an encore. And it's fun. It's fun for us, and it's at our age, it's relaxing to just sit up there and not have to dance around and change costumes and all that. At least not this time. We'll probably come back to that next time out.
So if they were all standing or all sitting, were you the one standing then?
No, I was sitting also. Everyone was sitting. Everyone had a stool.
Yeah.
And that was it. I mean, once I got up and sat down at the drums, I was there for 90 minutes until I got up and walked off, which is neither here nor there. I mean, a lot of bands do that. But what we've been doing is we come out, we do 2 or 3 songs, usually open with a polka medley at the beginning of the show. And then there's a costume change. So the video is running, and it's a nonstop show. As Moose has seen, of a recent show is very typical of the kind of show we've been doing for 25 plus years. And it's just, there's always something going on. And it's literally, they bill it as a multimedia rock and comedy extravaganza. And that's exactly what it is. It's just, when we do the longer show, we did a 2-hour and 15-minute show back in the day. And it was just nonstop. You just sat in your seat. You just, no intermission, no nothing. And it went by very quick also. It's just, a lot of stuff going on. And the fans love it, and they've been very receptive to this as well. A lot of them are very excited that this Unplugged tour has come back.
Because I remember the 2004 show in Cleveland was in the outdoor amphitheater, and I flew so fast, but I know it was a longer show. But you guys, the lights go out, the big old screen comes on, people disappear off stage, or sometimes people get changed on stage, and it is a whole production, just beginning to end when you're not doing the unplugged version.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. It's very well coordinated. The videos are timed to the costume changes, which means, and it's like, well, how do we do that in rehearsal? I hate to say it, but it's been a long time since we actually really rehearsed the show all the way through and had it before we went out on the road. Usually the opening show is the dress rehearsal. But what Al does, and he concocts all the videos and makes sure everything's sequenced and the length is good. And he says, well, this should probably take, 3 minutes and 20 seconds to do this change, but I'll make it 3 minutes and 50 seconds. And if we find when we're out on the road that the change goes quicker and we're just kind of standing at the side waiting for the video to end, we'll shorten it so that we can get back out there and play. We don't want this to just become a video show. We want it to just to be a lot of excitement and just bam, 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 bam. And the videos are literally there not to entertain, but just so we can do the costume changes without it being a black stage.
Okay. So did anybody else have any more questions? Because then I'm going to run into a clip package that John did with Ludwig drums. And then when we get back from that, we're going to once again let you know how to buy the book and check on the tour. And remind you that I did do an interview with John earlier this year, which you can catch on HNE Games channel.
Hi, I'm John Bermuda Schwartz with the Weird Al Yankovic Band, and this is Behind the Beat. We're in the Chicago Theater here in Chicago, Illinois, in support of the Mandatory World Tour. The Mandatory Fun LP was released in July of 2014 and debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 charts, which is pretty cool. Very cool for a comedy act, very cool for anybody, really. We're on tour, a world tour, from May through October of 2015, and got about 110 dates, so it's going to be a busy year. These are my drums for the tour. I've been using these since 2011. These are Keystones in fairly standard sizes, 14 by 24, 8 by 12, 9 by 13, and 16 by 16. All mounted Atlas mounts here and rims mount down here. Using a 6.5-inch Black Beauty with Imperial lugs, regular normal shell. And I like the Keystones in particular sound. They have a lot of bite, they have a lot of punch, there's a lot of warmth there. And I feel like I get a lot out of them when I'm playing them. The kick is beefy, toms are beefy, there's a lot of attack, there's a lot of tone, and it's hard to beat a Black Beauty. recently changed from a standard rims mount with a big plate on here to the Atlas mount. I did that for a couple of reasons. One, I prefer the look. It's a lot sleeker. You see more of the shell. Sound is great. And another bonus is you don't have to remove a whole assembly just to change heads. I leave these drums on here and I can change them as is without having to take off a big rims mount. I still have one on the 16-inch floor tom, and every time I have to do that, I sure wish I had Atlas mount on there as well. But these have been great, and they're compact, and that's definitely the way to go. I recently started using the Atlas pillar clutch snare stand. If you've ever had a snare walk when you're playing it and kind of move around and do things, you're going to love this stand. What it does is it allows you to move the arms here, the holders, so that the drum is centered right over the center of the stand. It's not centered off of here, because when you do that, the stand walks. When it's centered right here, and you can see it wants to be here, you hit the drum straight on, it goes straight down the center. This stand doesn't move at all. It's great. Don't ever have to worry about it.
Okay, so thank you, John, for coming. Now, before we go, just remind people what they can do to look you up, look up the book, and look up the tour. And so first off, we have John Bermuda Schwartz website, which is bermudaschwartz.com.
Right.
And keep in mind, the links for everything is in the video here. And then we also have his book, Black and White and Weird All Over, the last photographs of Weird Al Yankovic, 1983 to 86. It is available now on Amazon.com. And finally, again, the unfortunate return of the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised Vanity tour. Try to say that 3 times fast. You will not get through. I noticed a special guest is Emo Phillips, a regular for Weird Al.
Yeah, Emo was out with us in 2018, and it was a really good match for what we do. I mean, even the younger fans that maybe aren't, hadn't heard his albums from back in the 80s, they loved him. So it was a good match. He's looking forward to come back out. He comes out and does like a half hour, and then we do about 90 minutes after that. And it's a good evening. It's an enjoyable evening.
Okay, so tour dates and locations and ticket information is available on the WeirdAl.com website. So go check that out. And thank you, John, for sticking with us for this half an hour and sharing with the people the upcoming tour. And is there anything you want to say before you go?
No. No, you covered it all. We got a book, we got a tour. There's another book coming out later to talk about another time. And I wish everyone happy holidays and a happy new year. And I hope 2022 opens up with this pandemic thing and we all get back to normal.
All righty.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, John, again.